The Jutes, IUTI, or IUTAE, were a Germanic people. According to Bede, the Jutes were one of the three most powerful Germanic peoples of their time in the Nordic Iron Age, the other two being the Saxons in the Angles. The Jutes are believed to have originated from the Jutland Peninsula and part of the North Frisian coast. In present times, the Jutlandic Peninsula consists of the mainland of Denmark and southern Schleswig in Germany. North Frisia is part of Germany as well. The Jutes invaded and settled in southern Britain in the late 4th century during the Age of Migrations, as part of a larger wave of Germanic settlement in the British Isles. Homeland and historical accounts. Bede places the homeland of the Jutes on the other side of the Angles relative to the Saxons, which would mean the northern part of the Jutland Peninsula. Tacitus portrays a people called the Udos as living in the north of Jutland, and these may have been the later IUTAE. The Jutes have also been identified with the Eotenjas involved in the Frisian conflict with the Danes as described in the Finnesburg episode in the poem Beowulf. Others have interpreted the Eotenjas as Jotins, meaning giants, or as a kenning for enemies. Disagreeing with Bede, some historians identify the Jutes with the people called Eucia, who were evidently associated with the Saxons and dependents of the Franks in 536. The Eucii may have been identical with an obscure tribe called the Euthiones and probably associated with the Saxons. The Euthiones are mentioned in a poem by Venantius Fortunatus as being under the suzerainty of Chilperic I of the Franks. This identification would agree well with the later location of the Jutes in Kent, since the area just opposite to Kent on the European mainland was part of Francia. Even if Jutes were present to the south of the Saxons in the Rhineland or near the Frisians, this does not contradict the possibility that they were migrants from Jutland. Asser in his Life of Alfred claims that Alfred's mother, Osburga, was descended from the Jutes of the Isle of Wight, whom he identifies with the Goths. This ancestry, however, is unlikely, and so may be the identification. Another modern hypothesis, accepted by the Oxford English Dictionary, states that the Jutes are identical with the Geats of southern Sweden. In primary sources, the Geats are referred to as Eotas, Iotas, Eutan, and Getus. However, in both Widsith and Beowulf, the Eotenjas in the Finn passage are neatly distinguished from the Getus. It may be that the two tribal names happened to be confused, which occurred in the sources about the death of the Swedish king Austin, for example. It is possible that the Jutes were related to the Geats and a Gothic people, as it is mentioned in the Gutta saga that some inhabitants of Gotland left for mainland Europe. Large grave sites were found at Willenberg, Prussia. The finds were attributed to Goths or Geppards. Jutish settlement in southern Britain. The Jutes, along with some Angles, Saxons and Frisians, sailed across the North Sea to raid and eventually invade Great Britain from the late 4th century onwards, either displacing, absorbing, or destroying the native Celtic peoples there. According to Bede, they finally settled in Kent, Hampshire, and the Isle of Wight. There is some evidence that the Hastings people who settled in the Hastings area of Sussex, in the 6th century, may have been Jutish in origin. There are also a number of toponyms that attest to the presence of the Jutes in the area, such as Etenna, which Florence of Worcester states was the contemporary English name for the New Forest. Also the Meonwara, who settled the Meon Valley area of Hampshire. While it is commonplace to detect their influences in Kent, the Jutes in Hampshire and the Isle of Wight vanished, probably assimilated to the surrounding Saxons, leaving only the slightest of traces. One recent scholar, Robin Bush, even argued that the Jutes of Hampshire and the Isle of Wight became victims of a policy of ethnic cleansing by the West Saxons. This has been the subject of debate amongst academics, with the counterclaim that only the aristocracy might have been wiped out. Bede is the only historical evidence, and he clearly implies that this was so. In 686, the culture of the Jutes of Kent shows more signs of Roman, Frankish, and Christian influence than that of the Angles or Saxons. Funerary evidence indicates that the pagan practice of cremation ceased relatively early, and jewelry recovered from graves has affinities with Rhenish styles from the continent, perhaps suggesting close commercial connections with Francia. The quoit brooch style has been regarded as Jutish from the 5th century.